Hello, my name is Dan Johnson, and welcome back to the Who podcast. This month, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Well,
It is very interesting.
I think,
I'm very excited to be here.
yeah, there's an element of nerves, isn't there, today for
Yeah,
us?
I'm quite first time doing this stuff. Ooh.
Mm. So I think, without further ado, I think we should very quickly, uh, because I am a little bit nervous, and it's not just due to the heat, uh, and introduce our guest, which is the one, the only Philip
Mr. Philip
Hawkins.
Hawkins. Woo!
Hello.
It's absolutely brilliant to have you on.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
So I think that I was trying to remember when I was writing the questions about how long we've known each other because I feel like we've in part known each other for a
Oh,
very long time.
yeah, I can't remember. I think I first. How long have you been doing like Doctor Who reviews and stuff on your channel? How long have you been doing that?
So I started in series 9, I think,
Series
but
9.
I don't think. In fact, I'm almost certain that you didn't start. I think so. I think you initially were the person that made contact with me.
Yeah,
During
I
series
Oh
10.
wow.
Series 10. Yeah, I remember when I started was I think it was during Series 10 really when I really started my channel, and then I was at the same time as because I was doing the weekly reviews of the episodes that were on during Series 10, and I was like, oh well, I should search out some other people that are
Hmm,
doing reviews and watch their reviews too. And I think you were one of the people that came up in my search,
hmm.
so I found your channel and subscribed to it from there. And so I guess in one form or another, we've been watching each other's videos since
Oh,
about
yeah.
2017.
And I mean, what a progression I think we've both seen though, because
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
you were on. I think I was one. I was below. I think I was before your first 1,000, and you were
Oh
my
yeah.
my first 100.
I
Um,
think I think in 2017, I don't think I maybe that was when I first got above 100 subscribers. I can't remember, but it was very low numbers then. Like it's fairly low now. I mean, it's only in the like low thousands and stuff, but it's like yeah, I had about somewhere maybe about 100 subscribers, I think, something like that.
well, we were just discussing this, weren't we, earlier? Because we were thinking about how many you had, and we had to check. And Will, do you remember exactly what the number was? If you did you write it down? I can't remember.
Yeah. So you have 4.3k thousand 4.3k
4.3K.
subscribers, 650,000 views altogether. So
Ooh,
yeah,
It's a lot.
or just
that's
over
nice.
650,000.
That 5,000 is just eluding me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get to it at some point.
Oh,
I
It's
mean,
my own
100%.
fault. I've barely made any content in the last like 6 months to 8 months or something
Well,
like
there's
that.
not
I've
really
barely made
been
anything.
much to make stuff on, has there? It's obviously
particularly
apart
Doctor
from
Who
all the
stuff. Yeah.
news.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And every
Centenary's
time
keeping
I
quiet.
do make news, because I don't just make videos on Doctor Who stuff either. I make videos on lots of geeky pop
Hmm.
culture. So Star Trek, the MCU, and things like that as well. But they get barely any views compared to the Doctor Who stuff. So I could make a video reviewing something from the MCU and it'll get maybe 200 views or something like that.
Oh
And
my
then
god,
I
they do.
and then
Sorry.
I would, yeah, and then I'll get like, then some Doctor Who news will hit, and I'll make a video about it. And as long as I get it out relatively quickly, that'll get in the thousands of views. And it's
Yeah.
just like it's a little bit annoying that that only the Doctor Who stuff gets that many views, but it is what it is, and that's clearly what most of my audience is there for.
Well,
I didn't actually realise that. Oh, it's
yeah.
just from 100 to 3k, and then wow.
Yeah, it's quite a stark contrast between
It
the
is
Doctor Who
very
videos and the others
big
and the other
jump, isn't
videos.
it?
I was actually I was about to say that I actually watched a lot of your Star Trek Discovery reviews as I went through them, I started watching them.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I kind of gave up I think this most recent series.
Yeah.
I
Well, I didn't give up watching it, but I did give up reviewing it.
did you? Yeah,
Yes.
but obviously you say you do a lot of stuff, and another thing that you do is of course the Red Dwarf podcast, which I've been on.
You have,
And
yeah.
that was a lot of fun. I do really enjoy listening to them when I'm walking my dog in the morning. Um, so I don't know where you're currently up to with how it's recorded. I think I've just have the bonus episodes to do until we reach series 10.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I
the
think it must be
last of
around
our
that.
bonus, the next episode that we release will be series 10. It will not be this week, however, or we're having another couple of weeks break just so that we can get some in the can. We've recorded one episode of Series 10 reviews, which with we've got some more guest reviews on. You yourself have been a guest reviewer. We've got Matt from the review of Death coming on. Matthew Toffolo coming on from the review of Death.
Oh wow! Sorry, no.
Well.
I just realised who that Matt is.
Yeah, Matthew Toffolo for the review of Death. Yeah, he's coming on. Batman March. Yeah, he's coming on. He's already recorded an episode with us for that first one, and then we've got some more lined up as well. It's just fitting them in, and we want to get a few under a belt because I don't want to take a break mid-series when I don't have enough time to edit it. So
that's exactly what I'm doing with these podcast episodes.
Exactly,
now. Yeah. But so obviously when I was on your Red Dwarf podcast, I kind of knew that I wanted to have you as a guest at that point. And it was a good time. We recorded Pete Part 2, I think it was. Was it Pete Part 1? Pete Part 2.
It was one of the Petes. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was.
And yes, and now we're all the way up to Series 10. But before we start asking the proper questions, I guess, should we just get a little bit of background on your general taste towards media? So, Will, as this is your segment, please go ahead.
What is your favourite scene in any piece of media?
Oh, I wish you'd given me these in advance. I could have thought about it.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, my favourite scene in any piece of media. That's such a wide. I don't know.
It did take me by surprise when he asked for that. I was like, oh.
I just thought of something that would kind of get to know everyone a bit easier, but it kind of is just throwing you all on the spot in the last.
Yeah, I would suggest letting people think about that before they come on.
In future, I might do that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head,
we just like knocking you straight off your feet. Early on.
Visually, are we talking visually? Are we talking script?
When I did it, I narrowed it down between I think movie and then TV show. I think that was the best way to do it. So
I'm trying to think of one really stunning visual scene from something that
my one was a visual scene, and it was Last Night in Soho, the dancing scene.
Oh, that is really good. I've recently seen that film. That is a really good film. I really like that. Yeah. Can I if I think of something, I'll come back to it.
You can come back.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay, so then if we will come back to circle back round to that question. So my first question to you, as we've kind of touched upon briefly already, but in terms of YouTube, what inspired you to make your videos to begin with?
I wanted to practice video editing, because I had done a media production degree and done video editing as part of that. But it had been a good 10 years after I graduated, and I hadn't done any video editing in that time. So I was like, well, this might be useful at some point in my career. I mean, I work in radio generally.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
With multi sort of, the world is getting more multimedia, and it just seemed like a good idea to brush up on other skills that I had let slip. And so I was like, well, I need something to edit. And then my friend who I worked with was doing YouTube with his friend and reviewing Doctor Who episodes he did it in Series 8 and Series 9. And he was doing immediately after the episode, they would sit on a couch and record a review straight away afterwards, and that was called Doctor Who Debrief. And they invited me on a couple of times, once in Series 8 and once in Series 9. So I went around their flat and because they lived together, and just recorded that review, and I had a really fun time doing it. And so I was like, I need something to edit. So I pitched to them, hey, how about we do this, but for the classic series, and we'll go through the classic series from the beginning. And so basically, I kind of thought of it as a spin-off from their series, and I called it Doctor Who Rebrief instead of Debrief.
Right.
And it was me and those two again. and we used to batch record episodes. So they would come down to my house. They lived in London. I live in Sussex. They came down for like a weekend, and we just batch recorded. So we'd watch a whole serial, record the review, watch another serial, record a review. We usually get 3 or 4 serials done in a weekend.
Okay, I mean that feels like an awful lot of work.
It does, it does,
get
and that is why we got as far as Dalek Invasion of Earth,
Right.
and they had just done on Rob's channel. This one of my friends, Rob, who was one of the 2 guys. It was his channel, and they had just done together the reviews of Class, and they really didn't like Class. And it just kind of like, as I could see as I was watching their Class reviews, them just getting more and more disheartened. And they're like, it sapped all of their enthusiasm about doing these reviews from it. And I think also the grueling recording schedule I was putting them through was quite harsh as well. So they eventually went like, look, we just don't want to do this anymore. So I was like, fair enough. Okay. And so then we continued on. I continued it on for a little bit with like swapping out like I had guest reviewer with me on the couch each time, and we got as far as the chase. And then it just kind of petered out. And by that point, I'd started doing other stuff on my channel as well. But that's kind of where it started with that. And also in 2017, I decided, completely unrelated to Doctor Who or anything TV or media-esque, I wanted to do this thing where I would celebrate a different holiday every day of the year.
I was. I looked down your channel, and I saw you with the spin-off of their show, and I think I saw a few of them, maybe not at the time, but looking back, and then I saw this sort of moment where just as your format comes in that you have now, there's this sort of special like advent calendar almost.
Yeah,
series.
Basically, I called it Festivity 365. 365 days in the year, something for every day of the year. And the idea I'd find these random holidays. So every day has something. It's National Something Day every single day. So whether a lot of it's food related. National Burger Day, National Donut Day, whatever.
Spaghetti Day.
I'm sure there is one. Yeah, there must be. So I decided that I would try and do this and do a video every single day. Some of them would be more in depth than others. Some of them would be me literally just eating a donut or something. But I tried to make some kind of video every day of the year. Some of them I didn't put any effort into whatsoever. Some of them I did get quite creative. I did a lip sync for Barbie Day. I did a lip sync to Barbie Girl by Aqua.
Oh my
with
God.
me in a blonde wig as Barbie and in sort of aviator shades as Ken.
Is this video still available?
It's still available. You can find it if you look for it.
Brilliant.
Just search Festivity 365 Barbie Day and you will find it.
But
it's like TikTok before TikTok was around, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I was ahead of my time. So yeah, I was doing that alongside it. But then once I started doing the Series 10 reviews and I kind of fell into, then my channel started to being like, okay, this is what my channel is. It's the pop culture stuff. And I kind of petered out with the Festivity Challenge about June. So I didn't actually complete the challenge of doing it every day of the year. Because making a video every day is hard.
Yeah,
it takes up all your time.
Yeah, I mean those advent calendar ones that you did last Christmas, were they? I presume you didn't.
I watched them religiously. That was so weird.
What, the Doctor Who advent calendar? Yeah. But
I think logically the best way to do them would be to batch them.
No. I did that every day. I generally, because I wanted to open the advent calendar on the proper day, so I didn't batch record that at all. That was generally recorded in the morning every day, and I did quickly edited to put out onto YouTube Shorts. It was kind of me experimenting with YouTube Shorts, which I haven't done anything again with since, but seeing what that was like.
We definitely enjoyed them.
Yeah, I'm not one for watching YouTube, but for some reason, every day I go onto my subscription and go, yeah, it's the new calendar.
Excellent. Excellent.
It was quite an interesting sort of thing, though, wasn't that advent calendar? Because there's a whole sort of controversy behind it, and whether it was really worth the money. And I think there's also this love just sort of be disgusted at things almost, be like, oh, it's not worth that much money. But for the most part, I think you got a lot of good deals out of that, didn't you?
Yeah, and I did a separate video after December about like, was this worth it? And I tried to do it completely like sort of academically, and like I made a spreadsheet and like worked out what each item would cost, or a similar item if you bought it in the shops.
Yes, yeah, I
and
remember that.
therefore given the price paid. And then I worked out like, okay, well, actually half this stuff I wouldn't actually want, but this stuff I would. So given that this is the stuff I want, was it worth it? And made a video sort of around that. And on the whole, I think for me personally, it was worth it. It was worth the money, and definitely as like, I got content out of it as well, so that was always a bonus. But even just the advent calendar itself was quite, I think I got enough from it that I would use myself, that I think it was worth it, and it was fun as well. It's a shame we probably won't be getting another one, given that Eagle Moss has gone into administration.
Yeah, of
and
course
they made it. So
I mean, that thing's gonna be worth quite a bit. You would have thought.
I did notice just before they went into administration, they did have adverts for it again in Doctor Who magazine. So they clearly had a lot of leftover stock, and were trying to flog them off, because in May in Doctor Who magazine they had adverts for the advent calendar again. So
oh dear.
So, and it was the exact same one, so it wasn't a new version. It was the same one. So they were clearly trying to get rid of all their old stock that hadn't sold. Unfortunately, I think it should have sold more. It was good. It was such a high price point. Yeah, it's going to be unavailable to a lot of people.
Right off it when I saw that price, because I probably would have got it.
Yeah, as a student, it was an immediate no.
Well, yeah, and the only reason, and I've been very fortunate this year that the working from home has given me a bit of extra money, because I haven't been spending it on commuting. So a lot of that has gone into, I spent a lot of that on Big Finish, Time Lord Victoria stuff, which I made a load of videos on, and the advent calendar. So.
And because I know that you're quite a spreadsheets or like sort of data oriented person. You talked about your advent calendar video, and I've heard you mention it before. But what I'm interested to know is, because I have sort of stages to videos, and like when I do a project, I kind of like to set goals of like, oh, I'm going to finish this scene by this date, and this, that, the other, and it means that I've got a fairly good work flow. It always doesn't, it doesn't really go to plan most of the time. But the intent is there. So I was going to ask you, is there any stage within your videos that are sort of odd, or what are the stages to a regular Philip Hawkins video?
It depends on what the video is. There's some videos I script, but they're the more like, I don't script reviews usually. So all my reviews are just me. I make some notes,
I do the same.
as I'm watching it, and then it's me just talking to the camera, and that sometimes results in me rambling quite a lot.
Yes.
And I don't tend to edit out much of the rambling, but just occasionally, if I completely lose my train of thought, I might edit that bit out. But mostly it's just kind of what comes to my mind at the time, and it's kind of a bit all over the place. I do like things where I'm doing. I'm trying to think, like the Who is Tegan video I did after she was revealed to be in the Centenary special. That was all scripted, and then so I typed that out, and I've got a little like auto cue type thing that I can get that up, and I can read it off.
As in, does it sort of roll? Like timed one, really?
Yeah, so it's basically a mirror, but it's a mirror that your camera can look through. It's a two-way mirror. So it's a little box that you can put on top of a tripod and stick your camera on one side of it, and then it's got a holder for a phone or tablet, and then you download an app that acts as a teleprompter, basically. So it then reflects up onto the mirror, and you can see the words, but the camera can see through it to you, so it looks like you're looking at the camera still.
Cool.
Little tele. You can buy them off Amazon and things. I can't remember exactly how much it was now. I got it for Christmas, but it's so that's handy. That's handy for those type of videos. So I tend to try and see, if I script a video, it tends to go up on there, or I do it completely voiceover and just find any images to go over the top. But that's time consuming. finding images to go over the top of things.
It can be. But what because obviously, so that's how you kind of record your videos. But I believe, I don't. At the minute, you say you're working from home, but you say that you used to do a lot of your editing on trains, essentially.
I did, yeah, I did on the way into work and stuff because I have an hour long, over an hour commute on the train usually when I do go into London. So that's good editing time if you manage to get a table and you can stick your laptop on.
That the thing that I would be nervous about when I used to do a little bit of editing at school. But the thing was I could never edit things with my face on it because I would always see like people looking over and going, "Oh, what are you doing?" It's like, no, this is my thing. I don't really want the two paths crossing in that way. So I could only edit like, animation stuff or audio stuff at school. I mean, I probably shouldn't have been doing that at all, but it was just kind of like there's too much time on my hands. I might as well. I was always quite fascinated with with that idea of what you were of what goes into behind the scenes of video.
Yeah. And I one of the reasons I've become a bit like I haven't released that many videos recently is because I've kind of gotten to a bit of a a creative rut in terms of scripting things, and I haven't been able to get the motivation to do it. So I've had a bit of a lull over the last sort of 4 months or so of where it's a lot of the time it's just been the Red Dwarf podcast coming out for like 3 weeks on end. And then thankfully there's a bit of Doctor Who news, which is the easiest stuff to do because I can just speak on camera about the news and give my thoughts on it and I don't have to plan it. So it's a lot easier to just get made. But the stuff that requires a bit of like research or planning, finding images and stuff, that takes a bit more time. And that is something that I need to get on top of again, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think we can all relate to being, almost burnt out by it or consumed by other things.
That's why I stopped.
But that kind of brings me nicely onto one of my other questions, in fact, which is, with all the TV that you watch, and with all the TV that comes out within pop culture and within fandoms that you're interested in, such as Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, everything like that, is there a show? Is there a show that you feel like you always have to watch? Like on that day of release, you have to watch this show. It's sort of your go-to thing that you have to see. And with what, an hour an evening, let's say on average, that a person has, is there things that you'd recommend that will be the most beneficial with that time?
I mean, the only thing I do make sure I watch on the day at the minute it's released is Doctor Who. That's anything else can kind of wait at least a day or two. The only thing that I make sure I'm watching as it airs is Doctor Who, usually. On any sort of regular basis, even like Star Trek and things like that, and the MCU and the Star Wars shows, they're all the kind of things I watch regularly. But even them, sometimes I'll wait a few days, and that does sometimes mean avoiding spoilers and things. But there's not quite. Possibly it's because I'm not making as much content. I am making some content about them, but not in the same way as I am about Doctor Who stuff. So I kind of feel I need to keep up more on top of the Doctor Who stuff. So did that answer the question? I'm not sure. There was another part of the question, wasn't there? What would I recommend?
So is that if I think that on average, I found that as I've grown up, things that I'd normally watch, I sort of don't have much interest in anymore. Or, for example, Star Trek Discovery, I kind of went off Star Trek Discovery because I thought, I can watch other things instead, things that I'm sort of more invested in. I think that there was a point when I used to watch all of the CW shows.
Yes.
I think you were the same, weren't you?
Yeah. I fell off of the CW shows, and then they announced Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I was like, now I need to catch up on everything because I need to see that. So I scrambled to catch up with it all, caught up with it all, watched Crisis, and I was like, this is really exciting. They're setting up some interesting stuff for what could come, and since then they've wasted all of that potential.
Yeah,
that they set up in Crisis on Infinite Earths. But I've made sure I've kept up with it because I didn't want to be in a situation again where there would be like another massive crossover that I really wanted to see, and I was like, I was really behind it. Of course, it doesn't look like that's happening because it looks like it's all getting cancelled now. But
no,
that's beside the point.
I've just finished. I think it's the most recent series, so season 8. I've been for the last couple of weeks. I sort of started. So I used to have this routine because I'm sort of a big fan of this. It's a horrible compulsion to have, but to always have to watch things on the day of release. So like with the Flash and Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow, there was a point when we were at school, Will, where it was sort of every night.
Every single
Yeah.
night.
So but every night at
yeah.
8 o'clock, I'd sit down and I'd watch each
8
one.
o'clock every single night on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yeah, and it was quite a horrible compulsion to have because it would mean that I would sort of give up things just to fulfill it.
Yeah, and it becomes like a chore to watch it then, doesn't
exactly.
it? It's something like, oh God, I've got to do this. And I had gotten to that point with the CW shows as well at one point, which is why I kind of fell off watching them.
I think
Yeah,
I've
but it doesn't
still
become a passion anymore. You don't really want to watch them anymore.
Yeah.
Like, as much as Doctor Who recently has not been the greatest, in my personal opinion, I'll still always have the passion for the show, which always take me back to it. Whereas other stuff, where if I'm just watching The Flash and the first 2 seasons were good, but then it just starts, losing it, I won't have that passion for Doctor Who as I do with, I don't think, any other show.
No, I would agree with you. I don't think I care as much. Do you know that line of Sheldon Cooper when he says that if I start watching something, I will, never leave. I'm gonna watch it through to the end. And when I heard that, they're all laughing at him for his, strange habit. But I sat there and went, oh God, that's me. That's something I do. I don't know if you heard of this app called TV Time, which is essentially like Letterbox, for movies.
Oh yeah.
It's basically that for television shows. So at the minute, I'm watching Being Human, which is a really good show, and I've got one series left, so I've got lots of little routines within it. So I have to watch like a series a week, which is quite an easy thing to accomplish. But I have to watch a series a week, and I have to log them all on that day that I see them. So but recently I was like, maybe I should just delete this app because it means that there are days when I sit there and I'm like, I pick it up and I look at my phone and just think, finally cross off this, that, and this. And I'm kind of scared of that compulsion, which is sort of why I think that as I grow up, I think you kind of have to let things go. I mean, the Flash is sort of an example of that. As Will, you said that you sort of went off at about series 3.
Yeah, which one was the one with the
Savitar.
one after Savitar? Yeah.
Oh, series 4 with Drwho, like the thinker.
Oh yeah, no, I watched a couple of them, but then I think it was also I didn't have the time to sit down and watch it every single night because obviously you're growing up, you get more friends, you do more stuff. Like even if it's just, I don't know, going on Xbox with them, I'd rather be on Xbox than watching The Flash.
Yeah.
Whereas it's so weird. If that was with Doctor Who and someone said, "Do you want to come on Xbox?" I'd be like, "No, I'm watching Doctor Who."
Yeah, I think we've both done that a few times, though, haven't we? Where people have said, well, I think now that we have jobs and fulfill this must be much more real because I think we're just coming into this sort of the real world, I guess. But for
we're
you,
still
obviously,
babies.
Yeah, for you, I think you've got way more responsibilities than we do. So
you're just calling him old.
That's not someone.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm getting used to it.
You've got responsibility.
Yes, I've got kids.
Yes,
and
you have
they
kids.
take up time.
Exactly.
Time that I love spending with them, so I wouldn't want to not spend it with them, obviously. But you do have a lot less time as you get older for the sort of things that you might have spent all day doing when you were like, I don't know, 16, 17.
That was still years ago, God.
Yeah, I've always found that quite an interesting subject. But I shouldn't have given you both parts of the question together because I realised that they are quite a load of questions. But so when it comes to a night and you've put the kids to bed, etc. What is your sort of go-to show in terms of comfort or just things that you're watching currently?
So, what am I watching currently? I mean, you say when I put it to bed, what am I doing in the evenings? It's mostly not watching stuff. It's mostly doing stuff like this and recording podcasts with people. Um, but or watching films. Tends it like me and my wife trying to find at least one night a week where we can watch a film together, and we sort of alternate.
Any
who
good
picks
films
it.
you've recently watched?
What have I watched? Because I do actually keep track of all the films I watch. I have like a very old school way of doing it, I guess. It's none of this letterbox stuff. I've just got a Facebook photo album where I post the poster art for it, and then put a little mini review up. So the last film I watched John Wick 2 the other night. That was good. Not quite as good as the first one, but still good. Sometimes, obviously, the kids get to choose the films. So I watched High School Musical the other week.
I mean,
which one? That's the real question.
The first one.
Oh.
We have to watch stuff in order.
You've got to get them on the second one.
Yeah, I'm sure we will at some point. I mean, I love a musical, so it was absolute cheesy, cringy, but it was also kind of fun.
Yeah,
So-
that's exactly how I would sum up High School Musical, because I have a sister that's about 2 years younger than me, and occasionally she'll have like a relapse of it and go into High School Musical again, and then the films all come on and the music is played through her speakers and etc. So
Yeah.
I'm afraid they don't really grow out of that phase. It continues.
I seen Tenant really recently. That was really good. I like that, the Christopher Nolan film. As I mentioned earlier, Last Night in Soho I've seen fairly recently. That was good. Bill and Ted Face the Music. I loved the Bill and Ted films from the 80s that I had on DVD at one point, and so watched them loads when I was a kid. And so when they made this new one, and that was fun and slightly nostalgic to watch. So yeah, a lot of films I tend to be watching. TV shows I tend to try and keep up with the Arrowverse still, and I will, because I'm a bit of a completist. So I'll and it seems to be ending, so I might as well stick with it to the end.
I have the same feeling towards it.
Yeah,
Is it good again?
It's the parts of it. I really like. I mean, it's debatable now whether or not you class it as Arrowverse, but Superman and Lois is. Really good.
Yeah.
But that, of course, is now on a different Earth and not part of the same Earth. It's not Earth Prime, so yeah, very confusing there. And what else was there? So last series of Flash was okay, I guess. It
was very muddled. When I was watching it with my dad this afternoon, he was sort of like, "What is this? What are you watching?" I was like, "This is the Flash, and he's this guy, and they're sort of like his family, but they're forces of nature and all this kind of stuff." He's like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't actually make sense." But I think that it's just so routine, that show. But something that I did quite enjoy, or enjoyed, because I'm afraid it's been cancelled now, but with Legends of Tomorrow. I
was about to mention that. It's just a fun show.
It is.
It's just still going on.
Really fun.
No,
it's been cancelled. On a cliffhanger.
Oh,
it is. Yeah,
I hate it
awful.
when they do that.
But the thing is, Will, because we used to really love it, didn't we?
I think I watched up to season. There's Arthur Darville's Rip Hunter. He was in season 1, wasn't he?
He went out
and some
in
of series
3.
2.
Some of Right. Okay.
Oh,
I think I stopped watching it after like mid.
I don't think you watched any further than series 3, because I think the sort of the tone of the show changed completely.
Yeah.
From what it was when you used to watch it, and from what it ended like. And I am curious that if you went back to it, and I showed you some of the plots, whether you'd go, "I'm sorry, what?" or whether you'd actually be up for it and like enjoying it. Because I think even my parents have a certain degree of enjoyment of Legends of Tomorrow compared to the others, because of the weird things that they pull out of a hat.
What did you enjoy more? The most recent season of Flash or the Timeless Children?
I thought I told you to put a ban on
Sorry, it's just
I thought we were banning the Timeless Children completely.
Yeah. It's scrapped from our minds.
Is it the issue with that is that we disagree quite heavily on it. So when we
Oh.
talk about it, or when Will brings it up, it means that me and Will have like 10 minutes of just discussing the Timeless Children. And it became quite a habit of me having to cut out essentially ramblings. So I was like, we're going to put a ban in place. We can't talk about it anymore.
I'm really sorry.
It all
I
goes
should
out.
have stuck to the rules.
But so obviously you were just talking, Phil, about sort of things that you're nostalgic for within Bill and Ted and things like that. And I suppose this also calls back to Red Dwarf, because I think you do get quite a lot of nostalgia from watching that show, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm quite driven by nostalgia, I think, these days. I think as you get older, you tend to get more driven by nostalgia. So a lot of the things that I will go gravitate to are things like franchises that I'm already invested in. So I will always go see a MCU movie now. That's just like, I'm just going to continue doing that. That will be mostly when I go to the cinema, it's to see MCU movies. And things from my childhood like that keep coming back. So there's a TV show I used to watch as a kid called Quantum Leap. It's a time travel thing. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. It had Scott Bakula. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Can't remember.
Didn't they reboot it recently?
They are doing that now. They
Are they
are.
doing
It
it?
hasn't come out yet, but they're rebooting it. Well, not rebooting it. It's not a reboot. It's a continuation. It's not got the same characters in it, but it's like it's set 30 years after the last series, so it's within continuity of the existing series. And there's a new one coming out, so I'm very excited about that because I used to watch it as a kid. And if you don't know the premise of Quantum Leap, it's a time travel guy who basically discovers time travel and steps into the machine to time travel, and it transports him his consciousness inside the bodies of people in the past.
Right.
So he at one point he ends up in like Elvis's body. So sometimes it's famous. Very rarely it's famous people. Usually it's just ordinary people, and he has to make something better in their life. And he's kind of trapped. He can't get home. He just keeps on leaping from sort of body to body and life to life throughout various bits of history.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept and great show. It was really good. And so they're bringing that back with a new cast and a new time traveler. So that'd be interesting.
Is there anything else that you're particularly nostalgic for? Because I think it's interesting that when you watch Red Dwarf, you sort of remember the time when you saw it initially. But for me, even though I've seen bits and pieces, I understand the general feel for the show. I think that some of the jokes go right over my head, for example.
Right. Are they because that's the kind of like it's referencing something from the 80s or 90s that isn't a cultural reference anymore. So
things that Adam doesn't get on the podcast are also things that I don't get.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For example, So is there really much that nostalgia doesn't, is there much that nostalgia can't do for you? A lot of sort of companies are focusing a lot on that element within, bringing things back. And, we talked about the Flash before, but the Flash, for example, has this thing about how, no one's really dead and they're bringing people back constantly. Is there anything that you would really like to see come back? Obviously, you mentioned Quantum Leap.
Yeah. Oh, so stuff that isn't coming back that we know of, but I would really like to.
Yes.
That's a good question. What would I really like for my childhood to come back, or like earlier in my life? I don't know.
I've got one, but obviously it was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The Spartacle Mystery or the Spartacle Project.
Right.
Never heard of it.
It was on CBBC, and it was like the adults disappear, and it's just like the kids are just roam because all the adults are gone, and it's how they get up to bringing the adults back. I really enjoyed it. I distinctly remember watching this as well, because at one point recently I did try and find it, but no, that was so the idea of the show was that all the adults are gone, it's just the kids left, and then it's like the kids rule the world and they're the only people that are around, and they don't really look in the
the real world issues of there not being any adults around. Um,
No.
but yeah, I think there was obviously that beautiful mystery within it that was somewhat disappointing and basically just pulled you along the entire time the
Got
show
the
was on.
what's the person who played the Slitheen name?
I'm afraid I
Yeah.
don't know.
The one
Oh,
from Boomtown.
yeah, I know.
Annette's
Annette Badland.
Yeah, she's in it.
Badland? Yes, yes.
Is she?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in it at the end. Like she helps them bring back the adults.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I've always been quite nostalgic for anything that's been around sort of like early 2010s. There's just a general feel about those shows, particularly sort of documentaries from around that time, that I really enjoyed. Maybe because obviously they were things that when I was younger they were just on television. But something I'm watching at the minute is Rev. I found like a lot a lot of those a lot of that era was just incredibly comforting. And there's something, but it's such a weird thing to describe. But it's like the texture of the film and the way it looks. Maybe it's the costumes or the clothes or something like that. But it takes you right back to it, which is the perfect thing with nostalgia. I absolutely fall in love with it.
I think what I would like to see. I mean, there's some things from my childhood that have already been brought back in the sort of similar kind of cartoon format. So things like He-Man. There was the recent Netflix Kevin Smith version of He-Man that I really enjoyed. Apparently, it was quite controversial and not it would divided the fandom, let's say. But I really liked it. There was things like Thundercats and stuff like that. That I used to watch when I was a kid. So something like that, but live. I'd like to see a live action. There was a live action He-Man movie in the 80s, which I still have nostalgic feelings for, but it objectively is probably quite bad.
This may break your heart slightly, but for me, I think that my sort of first thought when you said He-Man, was the adverts for what is it? Is it Go? Oh, it's not Go Compare.
It's one of those, isn't it? It's
Money
comparison
Supermarket
site.
or something like that.
Money, that's it.
Yeah.
Are you
Yes.
serious, Dan?
Yeah,
Your
seriously.
first thought.
That's what my brain went to straight away.
Oh my god!
Why have you seen the original He-Man?
I've not seen it, but I know who He-Man is.
But that's sort of I knew of He-Man through that. Is what I meant. Is that I heard of it through that advert, and then I went, what is He-Man?
Right, okay.
I'm going to make myself feel even older by asking this question, but because there was already they've revived He-Man a couple of times, and there was a series. I think it was around about 2004, 2005 that they were. So the original one is the 80s, and then they did a new version in sort of 2004, 2005. So I'm going to make myself feel very old by asking this question. But how old were you in 2005?
When in 2005 was this like?
Are you going to say you were born in 2005?
No, I was not born in 2005.
I don't know what month it came out. I don't even know if
Okay.
it was 2000. I just have a vague memory of it being around about 2005.
Either. Oh god.
2 or 3.
No,
3
or 4.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
So
Oh
now
my
I feel
God.
very old, and you also wouldn't remember that series either,
Probably
because
not.
who remembers what stuff from when they were 3?
Yeah.
So as we've discussed like a lot of nostalgic stuff, maybe we could put it back to Doctor Who for a little bit, and I would like to know your favorite fondest memories of Doctor Who and how it has affected your life.
That's a good question. My fondest memories. Yeah, I don't know. See, I mean, I suppose it's affected my life in sort of the more recent years of doing the YouTube channel and things. I've met people I wouldn't have met otherwise, made friends I wouldn't have met otherwise. But that's very recent. I think, like throughout most of my life, Doctor Who has just been a show I watch, and it hasn't been something that affected me massively in any way. It was just another show I liked, and it was only really when I started sort of creating content about it that I got more invested in it. Because I've always been like, I read books, I read the novels, and I watched the TV show. I owned DVDs and stuff like that, but I didn't really interact with anybody else about it before I started the YouTube channel. It was just something that I pieces of entertainment which I consumed. But in more recent years, it's been a sort of facilitator of meeting people and going to things that I hadn't really considered going to before, like Comic Cons and BFI screenings and things like that, and actually interacting with other fans of it, which is something I hadn't really done before.
Yeah,
And
I'd
then
love to
like
do that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And that's what it's all
and it's
about,
great. And
especially
everybody
when
at
it's sorry.
these events, sorry, no, everybody at these events is usually really friendly. Like the first time I went to one was only because I had like started talking to somebody else at a con just in the line for something, and they'd mentioned they were going, and I was like, oh yeah, and I'd kind of become friends with them over the course of the con and afterwards online and stuff. So they'd mentioned that they were going, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go and go along to one because I'll know at least one person. But while I was there, I got chatting to loads of other people, and everyone's usually very friendly and approachable. And if you go up to someone like in the bar afterwards at a BFI event, people were willing to talk to you. And then you can just make more friends like that, basically.
Have you ever been, sorry. Have you ever been recognised at one of these events?
Like, yeah, I mean, some people come up occasionally and go, oh yeah, I watch your YouTube channel, or I've seen your YouTube channel, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not like, not in any kind of like big way.
Yeah,
It's
not like, oh my God!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not like that. Not like I'm a celebrity or anything.
Yeah.
Just like in a kind of like, oh yeah, you the guy that did those Time Lord Victorious videos, aren't you, or something like that. Yeah.
I for one, I think we've discussed this before, haven't we? Is that we both like to go to a Comic-Con at some point.
I'd love to go. I don't know why I've never been. I think it's just getting there and finding accommodation, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But I'd love to go to one.
I mean,
yeah, they can be quite interesting. I've been a couple of times now, or a handful of times, and I've used it as a thing to make content. So I made videos while I'm there and stuff as well, because I was never massively tempted before that, because I'm not a signature collector. I'm not even that fussed about getting photos of people, particularly, and because I like less so in the area of radio I work in at the moment. I don't tend to meet that many celebrities anymore because I work in science radio at the moment.
Radio.
I work for the Radio Science. Right. Well, yes, I have sat next to Brian Cox in the office. That is as far as my. I didn't talk to him, but he was next to me for a brief period of time.
I think
that's about the extent of my celebrityness that comes about in my current department I'm in.
I think you've met Christopher Eccleston, haven't you? I
have met Christopher Eccleston, yes, because the last department I used to work in before I got moved to science was more of they had like magazine style shows and things like that. So they'd have celebrities on them and stuff. So sometimes there'd be people on the shows that I was working on behind the scenes. I'm not a presenter or anything. I was just like, I'm just production person.
Yeah.
So
that's what I want. Sorry, that's what I'm doing. Media at uni.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to do. I really want to get like audio and editing, post production, everything. That's really what like I want to go into. So it's really nice just hearing.
That's cool.
Yeah, just talk about your job.
Yeah, so like when there, I'd meet more people, and so I did meet various Doctor Who people through it. So Christopher Eccleston didn't come on to the show I was on, but he was on another show that was the production office was based in the same office as us, and I heard them say, "Oh, we got Christopher Eccleston sort of co-presenting the show this week," and I was like, "Ooh." And he was promoting his autobiography. I was like, "Can I come and meet him?" And I got a free copy of the autobiography and got and sign it, got a picture of him and stuff like that.
Wow.
I mean, there's been Mark Gatiss, who else?
I'd love to meet Mark Gatiss.
Bonnie Langford, and a few others like that have come in on the shows that I've been working on. And generally when celebrities come on the radio that I'm working on, I'm generally quite professional, and I don't like go, oh, can I have a photo and stuff like that. My one exception is Doctor Who people. And so anytime a Doctor Who person came on, I'd be like, oh, can I get a photo?
Do you get starstruck?
I think I wouldn't say I get starstruck, but I do get like, I want to talk about the thing you're in as opposed to just generally like most of this, because I'd obviously interact with celebrities in the green room and other things like that, but I'd be like just trying to have normal conversations with them most of the time. But if it was a Doctor Who person, I'd end up actually talking about Doctor Who.
What is your job specifically, or is it something that is quite difficult to describe?
My job title is production coordinator.
Oh, well, that's
and
quite,
that
so
yeah,
cool.
a big
Sorry,
one.
I know all about it. That's so cool.
that depending on what you're working on, that can mean a variety of things. The core basics of it is that it's very much a logistical admin role. It's kind of organizing things behind the scenes so that the show can go ahead.
As
Rather
in
than
It's like a
technology or
producer, but
people?
for radio, isn't it?
no, because there are producers.
Oh, is there?
That's a separate thing. Yeah. So it's not producing the programs. It's like I don't know, things like it can be as mundane as booking travel for people, but it could be also like, when I used to work on the magazine show Saturday, it was Saturday Live on Radio 4. It was I'd be like, on the day of the show, I'd be going through listeners' emails and replying to them and finding, because we used to have segments where people would come on air for, like, there'd be a question for the listeners to answer, and we'd read out some of the funny answers they sent back, and we'd get a couple of them, ring them up and get them on air. So part of my job was
the guy at the other end of the
selecting the
phone.
person that would, ringing them up and going, do you want to come on the air, and finding one that had a good story, that kind of thing as well. And I used to answer phones on a call in and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is very varied, and depending on which department you're in, you get involved in different things, sometimes more creative than others. When I used to work in radio drama as well, and that was like a lot of in the studio timing the takes and marking up scripts with timings of takes and which take the director wanted to use and things like that, as well as sometimes getting involved in the script editing, although that wasn't strictly part of the job. Depending on which producer you're working with, they would be amenable to you helping out with that as well. So it varies a lot. At its most mundane, it's organizing logistics, but it can have a lot of more interesting stuff as well, depending on what you're working on.
That's so cool. Sorry, it's just what I want to do. Like, in that area of work, that is my dream. It's
cool.
It's definitely a job that we're both quite jealous of, I suppose.
Behind the scenes, post-production or pre-production, it's just what I want. If that's just me, that's what I want.
It would be our dream job. But so my final question, let's look a little bit towards the future. So is there any sort of goal that you hope to achieve? And I believe that I've sort of already figured out your answer. You've talked about sort of storage permitting, being able to line up your collection in chronological order.
Yes.
So do you want to just explain what you intend to do there?
Yeah, one day in the far future, I'm sure, because I currently have kids and don't have the space. But I would love to get, and I used to do this with a much smaller collection when I didn't have quite as much, and also I didn't have kids, so I had a spare bedroom. Is to put all of the Doctor Who stories I own on DVD, on books, on Big Finish, on graphic novels, on a shelf in order of, the Doctor's chronology, the Doctor's life. And so that would mean that it wouldn't be like all the DVDs, then all the books. It would be a DVD, then maybe a book, then a comic, then another DVD, then 10 Big Finish audios, then, wherever they came in the Doctor's life would be where they sit on the shelf. It's not a very space efficient way of doing it because everything's different heights and stuff. So
I would hate that, to be fair.
Yeah,
I really would.
It would look a mess, but it would be in the correct story order for the Doctor's life. And I just like the idea of that. There's something about that makes me kind of smile, but I don't know if I'll ever have the space to do it. And as I get more and more stuff, the space to do it becomes bigger and bigger. So
I do find it interesting. Well, for me, because I put up some shelves for my Big Finish collection because I used to keep them sort of within my wardrobe. I've got like a big open wardrobe, and it always felt weird to put them there. So I got some shelves and hung them up, and so they're stacked 2 rows on top of each other. and I do go for chronological order within that sort of Big Finish section, you know.
Mm.
Although I've just noticed that something's out of place, which is really annoying. Um, but obviously they don't all fit where you want them to fit. But I have noticed, and I don't know if this is an issue with your shelves, because you at least at one point had an awful lot of Big Finish related DVDs, etc., all in one shelf. Is that they sort of bow, they begin to bend, and from the
Oh
weight
yeah,
of all of those DVDs, and
that is the problem with getting, IKEA shelves, or just like, what MDF basically,
yeah,
laminated MDF shelves, is that they don't take a lot. Yeah, all mine have kind of done that too. They don't
mm.
take a massive amount of weight before they start to bow, unfortunately. Unless you get some like really expensive hardwood solid shelving.
they're
I don't think there's any way of getting around that.
they're invisible shelves.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. So they're essentially you sort of screw essentially a long nail into the wall, and then you
Yes.
place the
Oh, I've
shelf
got them.
over
Oh,
the nail.
floating shelves.
Yeah, floating shelf. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do it in these
Invisible
brackets.
shelves.
Yeah, because the bracket is invincible. Yeah, that's not
It's
yeah,
just floating
exactly
in
what
the
I meant.
air.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
you see, because my sister is a big she's a big fan of books and particular authors. So she's studying English literature, for example, and she's had to take hers off because there's so many of them that they have almost bent the shelf and nearly pulled some of the wall out with it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and as I buy more Big Finish, I would say I've been rather good. Although this month has been a bit of a letdown, in respects of that there is so many Big Finish releases this month that I would like to buy. But as it begins to grow, I thought, oh, this will last for ages, and I'm already seeing that I have maybe three-quarters of a shelf left, maybe
Yeah.
something like that. And I'm going, oh god, I'm going to have to get more shelves, and then the idea of maturing my room just doesn't apply.
I have a like similar space issue, so I made the decision quite a while ago to only buy in physical CDs certain ranges. So I buy everything Eighth Doctor in physical. I
Yes.
buy everything the Time War in physical,
Hmm.
Time War related, and then a few others. I like the Ninth Doctor and obviously the War Doctor because that's Time War stuff. And some of the unit stuff I've got in physical, but everything else. So outside of those, I try and buy just digital only because just to save the space because it's just not enough space. I've also had to massively cut down the amount of stuff I'm buying in recent months as the cost of living crisis
Yes.
continues. I've been like, well, I can't really afford to spend 50-60 quid a month on Big Finish anymore. I should really cut down and not buy something every month.
Yeah, and the temptation's always there, which is obviously the issue with Big Finish and the amount of stuff that are always
Yeah, I had to make the
constantly coming
painful
in.
decision not to buy the second round of Ninth Doctor audios. I bought the
Oh,
first four
really?
sets, but I've decided not to buy the second four just because I've been like, I need to cut something out because I can't keep buying or I can't afford to buy all these all the time. So, although then wasn't there an announcement where somebody's returning in one of them? Who's returning? They got returning somebody in one of the future sets that hasn't come out yet. So I might just buy that one set.
Well, so the funny thing is actually, so we had obviously the first four sets, and they were really good, and then this new one came out, the Back to Earth, I think it was called,
Mm.
and I bought the vinyl, because at sort of the time that Dark Universe came out, I got quite obsessed with vinyl, um, so I bought the vinyl, and then I ended up buying the vinyl for the Ninth Doctor Adventures as well. And even though it hasn't arrived yet, I think Back to Earth, which is the first one of this second series, so to speak, I think is probably one of my favorite.
Okay.
Funny enough, I think that some of the stories in that are brilliant. But yes, like you say, there's you really have to pick and choose nowadays between everything that we're going
Big
to.
Finish listener.
Yeah,
There's so much.
yeah. Well, is it? Well, at least I think that if you were a Big Finish listener, you would you'd you're much better at being able to pick and choose what you enjoy than I am.
I just enjoy podcasts.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, you know, I don't, if I was listening to Big Finish, because it'd have to be a thing I'd have to sit down and listen to. Whereas if I just have it like a podcast in like Happy Hour or anything, because that's what I'm obsessed with, I can just have that in whilst I'm doing anything. But if I'm listening to Big Finish, I feel like, because, you know, ADHD craziness, I'd have to like just sit and listen, but then I'd just get bored of it. So that's my issue.
I tend to do it when I'm when I'm somewhere where I can't change what I'm doing. So either I'm walking somewhere. So if I'm walking from, say, the station, the St Pancras station in London to where I work, to that's about a half an hour walk. So I'll listen to one on that walk.
Yeah,
because I'm not going to get distracted
I could
away
do it
from
on the
that.
commute to work. Yeah.
Yeah, or if I'm driving somewhere in the car, I'll usually listen to one as well. So if I've got a long journey that's over half an hour or something, I'll stick one on.
Yeah.
I am much the same. Although recently, I have been allowed control over the kitchen speaker at work, which might mean that there could be some Big Finish blaring through that thing at some point.
I used to work when I was at uni. I used to work in a Subway sandwich shop, and as when I became a shift opener or a shop opener, whatever the term they used was, basically I was the one that opened up and was sort of in charge of the shift for that morning or whatever. So I had control of the stereo, and at the time that was sort of around about when they released the series 1 and 2 soundtrack. So I bought that, and I had that music, Murray Gold music, blaring out the speakers in Subway.
It's a beautiful album. Well, you know,
it's
what
a lovely
can I
album.
say?
Yeah,
exactly. It came out in vinyl recently, so
and everyone else would be coming in. All the other staff would come in and go, "Can't we put Radio 1 on?" I was like, "No, I'm listening to Doctor Who music."
But I think we can bring it to a close there with that being my final question.
I've just got one question.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not about Doctor Who. It's just about. You said you went to uni. What did you do at uni?
I did media production.
Oh, nice.
which had a at Lincoln Uni, and it had
Lincoln.
Yes. Interesting.
Oh, that's how.
Isn't it?
Right. Okay. It all makes sense now.
Sorry, it was a degree that kind of covered everything in the first year. So we did like a module on radio, a module on TV studio production, a module on single camera animation, photography, and then in the second year we like narrowed it down a bit. So you picked 2 of them, and then in the third year you just picked 1 of them. So I kind of gradually narrowed down to radio. Yeah,
I've just finished first year, and we did a module on like documentary making, on a radio one, photography, and all that stuff. So it's just nice knowing that someone else is doing media. That's all. Yeah.
Where are you doing that?
Sheffield Hallam.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that for you, well, there's always been that risk that what you were doing was, you know, like barking at the wind a little bit. So I think
nice that you can actually, if you try, you can get somewhere to do with that job. So
and look, it's always, you just gotta. It might take a while. I didn't get a job in radio for like probably 5 years after I left uni.
Okay.
So it was a while after I left uni that I actually managed to work in anything that was related to what I got a degree in. So so you don't give up. If you get like leave uni and like 2.5 years later you haven't got a job that is anything to do with it, don't think that's it. Don't think, oh, it's too late now. Don't stop trying. I eventually got found like a scheme that got me kind of through the door. And got in that way, but it's never too late.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's just nice to know that you can actually get somewhere with the degree which I'm currently doing.
I did not expect to be getting sort of that assurance out of this podcast, but we've reached it.
And I thought of a scene that I really like as well.
To mention.
I'm going to go with. I mean, it might. I don't know if it's my favorite because there could be something that I think of 2 minutes after I finish this podcast that I go, oh no, I should have said that.
God.
But I'm gonna go with The Greatest Showman, just the whole big climactic number of the greatest show. It's just got such energy, and I love the visuals of it, the circus and everything. And Hugh Jackman is an amazing performer. So is Zac Efron. He's come a long way. So I have just watched, as I said, High School Musical. His acting in that is bad. His acting nowadays is great. He's a brilliant actor now, but he's come a long way since the High School Musical days. Back then, he was just a pretty boy who could sing. Now he actually can act. So
but he's still a pretty boy.
Yeah, but so just that whole amazing scene, and I love the music from that film as well, and I stick it on, you know, all the time. It's just got so uplifting. So that whole scene is just brilliant. That's
a really good shout. That I've completely forgot about The Greatest Showman. Now I want to watch it again now. Yeah, that's a very good answer.
So
it has just got everything, that scene, hasn't it? It's got the energy, it's got the visuals, it's just got
it's so sort of it's so bright, sort of full of life. I think that's exactly what.
And it sums you up, Phil. Always scene. Happy.
Yeah. Well, obviously, thank you very much for coming on. You've been an absolute pleasure this evening.
Thanks for having me,
and thanks for taking your time to talk to us. Is there anything that you'd like to plug yourself? Obviously, we talked a lot about your YouTube, but is there anything else? Any new projects, so to speak?
Not anything that I would say is definitely coming out anytime soon. I've got lots of ideas that I keep having and never getting around to doing. So we'll. I don't want to commit myself to them. And well, I'll say one thing because I have said it. I'm thinking of doing a charity live stream at some point towards the end of October. So if that gets off the ground, that will be. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's middle of October, sort of time. But I've got a lot. I meant to do it last year and I didn't because I didn't get organised enough, and that might happen again this year.
Yeah.
So,
what charity would it be for?
It's for a local charity to me called Oscar's Wish Foundation, which is a baby loss charity. And it's one that has helped me and my wife out personally, and we're now involved in because we had a stillbirth a few years ago, so it's sort of one that's close to my heart. So I'm intending on doing that, but again, like I said, I intended on doing it last year and it didn't happen. So I don't want to make any promises, but that might be happening at some point in October. There we go. And so just other than that, just check out my YouTube channel, Philip Hawkins, just my name, and Everybody's Dead Dave podcast, which is the Red Dwarf review podcast, which you can find on my YouTube channel and other podcast platforms.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. That's a lovely idea. So brilliant.
If you do it in October, we will definitely be watching.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
thank you.
So Will, should we talk about where you can find?
Of course. You can find all our Who podcasts on
nice one.
Spotify, Spreaker, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. But don't you worry, you don't need to remember all of them platforms off by heart. You can just go in the link tree in the description below where you can find us on all of your favourite podcast listening platforms.
I have to say, Will, there will be one day when you will name all of them off by heart. I think you're very close. I can't work out which one you're missing. But
I had a Google podcast because I went back and listened to an old podcast and that one, I've got to add that one to it.
Well, so obviously, thank you both for coming. I hope you really had a good evening. Sorry for keeping you a little bit longer than I originally intended to. But until